The cowboy offered 2 horses for 1 night, but the Apache beauty gave him much more. A lone cowboy stepped into a quiet cabin, laying down 2 saddled horses as payment, thinking it would buy him a single night of comfort. But when the Apache beauty looked up at him from the fire's glow, something far deeper stirred in the shadows, something he never expected to receive. And as the wind howled outside, carrying dust and secrets across the valley, a truth rose between them strong enough to break a man or save him. What happens when a simple bargain opens a door no one is ready to walk through? The sound came first, a soft thud of hooves settling in fresh dirt outside the cabin door. A lantern flickered inside, throwing warm light across rough-cut logs and the cold stone hearth. The cowboy stepped in slowly, his boots leaving small trails of dust across the wooden floor, as if the long ride still clung to him. He held his breath for a moment, letting the heat of the fire thaw the night off his bones. Across the room, the Apache beauty sat near the hearth, her posture straight, her expression unreadable. Her dress caught the lantern glow, softening the tension that hung in the air. She kept her hands folded in her lap, as though guarding a quiet strength no stranger could buy. The cowboy placed the reins of 2 horses on the table, payment enough to feed a family for weeks. 2 horses, he murmured, voice low, roughened by cold and regret. Why? She asked, her tone calm but edged with caution. He hesitated, searching for the right words. For 1 night. Nothing more. The flames crackled sharply between them, throwing sparks that danced like truths trying to leap free. Outside, the wind pressed against the shutters, rattling them as if nature itself listened for the answer she might give. She studied the cowboy, not with fear, but with a kind of wary curiosity, as if weighing whether this man carried danger, sorrow, or something else entirely. "You bring more than horses," she finally said. Her voice was soft, but the weight behind it stopped him cold. Another gust of wind struck the cabin, sending dust swirling under the door. The cowboy's jaw tightened. He had come seeking warmth, a moment of rest, a chance to forget the world outside. But her words cut deeper than he expected, peeling back something he'd tried to bury long ago. He opened his mouth to speak, but a sharp knock echoed against the wall. Something hitting the cabin from outside, heavy enough to shake loose a splinter of wood from the frame. She turned her head toward the sound, calm but alert, her fingers brushing lightly against the side of the chair. "That's not the wind," she whispered. The cowboy stepped back toward the door, his hand drifting to the worn handle of his holster, his breath turning shallow. Something or someone was waiting in the darkness. The cowboy pressed his back against the cabin door, listening to the wind shift across the valley. The sound outside wasn't fading. If anything, it grew heavier, like weight dragging through wet soil. The Apache beauty remained by the fire, her gaze fixed on him, not frightened, but attentive, measuring the tension in his shoulders, the way his breath tightened. She stood slowly. "You expecting trouble?" "No," he answered, his voice a low rasp. "But trouble rides its own path." She tilted her head, catching the tremor in the window frame as another thump pushed against the outer wall. Sparks from the fireplace jumped, scattering across the stone. The room smelled of cedar smoke and dust carried in from the long ride. The cowboy stepped forward, brushing loose grit from the floorboards with the heel of his boot. "You're cold," she said softly. "I've been colder," he replied. "Long ride." Without speaking further, she slipped a wool blanket from the backrest of her chair and walked toward him. Her movements were careful, deliberate, not rushed. She draped the blanket over his shoulders with a gentleness that startled him. Her fingers brushed the dirt on his collar, pausing just long enough to feel the tremor underneath. "That's a long way to travel for 1 night," she whispered. He swallowed hard. "I needed a place where the past couldn't follow. It always follows," she said, "but it doesn't have to win." Before he could answer, the sound came again, this time sharper, like wood under strain. The cowboy stiffened, gripping the blanket's edge. "That's too heavy for wind," he muttered. "Then what is it?" she asked. "Could be a branch," and he said. "Could be a man." She studied him for a long second. "If a man comes here, he comes for you." The cowboy turned away, jaw tightening. His silence confirmed more than words could. She reached for the kettle hanging near the fire and poured hot water into a tin cup. Steam rose, softening the cold air between them. "Drink," she said. "Your hands shake." He hesitated. "I don't want trouble coming to your door." "My door has seen trouble before," she answered, and it stayed standing. He took the cup, the heat seeping into his palms, grounding him. The storm outside shifted direction, scraping against the roof shingles. The room dimmed as a heavy cloud blotted out the moonlight filtering through the window. "You rode from the north," she said. "The horses smell of pine and frost." "Snowline's close," he replied. Road was empty. "Empty roads don't chase men," she said. "Only hunters do." He flinched, looking at her sharply. "You read too much." "I read what you bring inside," she said. "Everyone carries a story on their boots." He looked at the blanket around his shoulders, surprised by how carefully she'd straightened it. "Why show kindness to a man you just met?" "Kindness doesn't cost 2 horses," she said, "but pain does." He exhaled, slow and heavy. "A woman should be careful who she helps. A woman who lives alone has learned to be." Her eyes flicked to the door. The sound outside quieted suddenly, swallowed by a heavy stillness, too sudden, too complete. "Something's wrong," she murmured. He set the cup down. "Stay behind me." She didn't move. "If danger waits outside, standing behind you won't change fate." She stepped beside him instead, hands clasped but steady. The cowboy's breath chilled as he reached for his holster, his palm brushing the worn leather. "Don't draw unless you must," she said. "Why?" "Guns call louder things." He nodded once. She spoke truth he already knew. Another gust pushed against the roof, but no branches swayed in the window's reflection. The night was still, too still. He took a step toward the door. She reached out, fingertips catching his sleeve. "Wait," she warned. "The horses." The cowboy froze. His eyes narrowed. "What about them?" "They stopped moving," she whispered, not even breathing hard. He listened and realized she was right. Hours of travel should have left the animals restless, stamping, snorting. Instead, silence sat heavy on the land outside. "That's not normal," he said. "No," she agreed. A sharp, tapping sound hit the doorframe. 3 quick knocks, too precise to be branches or settling wood. The cowboy's chest tightened. She stepped back just enough to give him room, but her eyes stayed locked on the door. "Someone found you," she whispered. He raised his hand toward the latch, but before he could touch it, a 4th knock sounded. Louder, sliding downward, as if a hand had dragged across the wood. He looked to her. She stared back, calm but braced, her breath barely visible in the warm firelight. "Open it," she said quietly. Her voice didn't shake. His did. The cowboy's fingers hovered over the latch, the fire's glow flickering across the tight line of his jaw. The Apache beauty stood a step behind him, her breath steady, her shoulders squared. The silence outside pressed hard against the walls, thick as snowfall before dawn. He didn't open the door. Not yet. "Listen," she whispered. He held still. The wind had stopped entirely, not a stir from the horses, not a groan from the cabin logs. Only the faint rustle of the blanket slipping off his shoulder as he moved. "That wasn't a man's knock," he murmured. "It was a man's weight," she replied. "Dragging." His pulse thudded once, hard. "You sure?" "I've heard the wind drag things," she said. "This was heavier." Another sound, soft, granular, slid across the porch, like dirt scattering under a boot heel. The cowboy tightened his grip on the latch. "I open it," he said, "and I don't know what waits." "You open it," she said, "and you learn." He swallowed. "What if it's someone hunting me?" "Then he hopes you fear him." He felt her words strike deeper than any bullet. She stepped closer, her presence calm, grounding. "You fear something else," she whispered. "Not him." He blinked. "What do you mean?" "You fear what you left behind." He exhaled sharply, looking away. Before he could answer, the sound returned, slow scraping, moving across the wood slats of the porch, inching toward the corner of the cabin. "Something's crawling," he muttered. "No," she said. "Someone is dragging." The cowboy's mouth tensed. He lifted the latch in one slow motion. The metal clicked, echoing through the cabin like a warning. She didn't flinch. "Be ready," she murmured. "I'm always ready. That's not the same as steady." He hesitated only a second, then pulled the door open. Cold air rushed in, sweeping the scent of dirt and pine into the room. The porch lay empty, almost. At the far right corner, a dark shape slumped against the railing. The cowboy stepped forward, boots creaking on the boards. The figure didn't move. "It's a man," he whispered. She joined him in the doorway, her eyes narrowing. "He crawled here." He crouched beside the body. "He's breathing. Not well." A low groan escaped the stranger's throat. Blood stained his sleeve, dust coated his trousers, his boots were worn, and one spur hung loose, twisted sideways. The cowboy leaned close. "Who did this to you?" he asked. The man's eyelids fluttered open, unfocused. He took it," the man rasped. "Took what?" The stranger's hand twitched, gripping the cowboy's coat weakly. "Your horses." The cowboy stiffened. "What about them?" The man coughed, his voice scraping like broken stone. "Something followed you." The cowboy felt the woman's eyes shift toward him. "Followed? What followed him?" she pressed. The stranger swallowed painfully. "Not a rider." His chest rattled. He coughed again, blood flecking his lip. The cowboy leaned closer. "Speak." "A man," the stranger whispered. "But not alone." A chill slid down the cowboy's spine. "What do you mean, not alone?" The man's gaze drifted past the cowboy into the cabin light, unfocused, as though he were seeing something behind them, something inside. "He's coming," the man gasped. The cowboy grabbed his shoulders. "Who?" The man's breath hitched. "The one you wronged." The cowboy froze. The Apache beauty caught it instantly. "So you did leave something behind?" He didn't answer. The wounded man sagged against the railing, breathing shallow. The cowboy looked over his shoulder at the silent horses tied to the post. Their ears lay flat, their bodies rigid. They were listening, every muscle taut. "That's fear," she whispered. He nodded once. "Not from wolves." "No," she said. "Wolves move with noise. This does not." The stranger's hand slipped from the cowboy's coat. "He's close," he murmured. "Closer than you think." His voice cracked. His head fell forward. The cowboy checked his pulse. Weak, fading. "He needs help," the cowboy said. She shook her head. "He needs shelter. Help comes later." He stood and lifted the man, draping him over his shoulder. "Bring him inside," she said. "But know this, whoever did this is not far." He stepped into the cabin, carrying the wounded stranger across the threshold. She shut the door behind them, sliding the wooden bar into place. The fire popped sharply as she knelt to clear space on the floor. "He spoke of someone you wronged," she said. "Who?" The cowboy lowered the man gently. "Someone who wouldn't forget." "No one forgets," she said, "but some hunt." He didn't respond. His eyes flicked toward the window. The night outside was still, too still. Suddenly, the horses whinnied in unison, hooves stamping hard against the dirt. The cowboy grabbed his gun. She turned toward the door. Something moved outside. Something heavy, something deliberate. Then came a single, sharp sound. A slow, steady knock against the cabin wall. Not on the door, on the back wall, where no one should be. The knock against the back wall came again, slow, dull, deliberate. The cowboy's blood iced. That part of the cabin touched only open land, hard ground, and the black line of the tree line. No porch, no step, no place a person could stand without sinking into cold mud. The Apache beauty's breath stilled. "That's not a man's knock," she whispered. His grip tightened on the gun. "Then what is it?" "A warning," she murmured. The wounded stranger on the floor stirred weakly, his voice cracking. "He found you." "Who?" the cowboy pressed. The man coughed, pain twisting his face. "The one that you left behind." The cowboy looked away, jaw set like stone. She caught it instantly. "You fear this man," she said. "I fear what he knows," he answered. Another knock hit the wall, this time lower, sliding across the wood like something pressing its full weight against it. Dust sifted from the rafters. "He's testing the cabin," she said quietly. "For what?" For weakness. The cowboy moved toward the back corner, boots silent on the floorboards. She followed, standing close enough for her shoulder to brush his arm. The fire crackled behind them, throwing long shadows across the walls. "You shouldn't follow me," he murmured. "You're not alone," she replied. "Not tonight." He swallowed hard. The sincerity in her tone cut deeper than the threat outside. Another dragging sound crawled along the outer logs of the cabin, then stopped beneath the window. The horses outside whinnied sharply, hooves striking the ground. The cowboy lifted a finger. "Listen." Silence pressed in. Then, a voice, low, raspy, barely more than breath. "Open up." The Apache beauty stiffened. "That's no friend." The cowboy stepped to the window and wiped a thin line in the fogged glass with the back of his knuckle. The darkness outside mirrored the faint cabin glow, making it nearly impossible to see. But something moved. Too close, too slow. "What do you see?" she whispered. "Nothing clear," he said. "Nothing clear hides truth," she replied. He leaned closer. Outside, a figure swayed in the dark. Not standing straight, not facing the cabin. It shifted weight from one side to the other, shoulders hunched unnaturally. "Is it the man hunting you?" she asked. "No," he said quietly. "He stands tall. This one doesn't." The figure jerked suddenly, smashing its hand against the wall again. The sound vibrated through the floorboards. The wounded man on the ground groaned, whispering, "Don't. Open. Don't." The cowboy stepped back from the window. "He wants me out there." She nodded slowly. "So you stay in here." "I can't hide." "You're not hiding," she said. "You're choosing ground." The cowboy opened his mouth to argue, but the sound outside changed again, this time moving toward the cabin's side. Footsteps dragged across the dirt, uneven, heavy, circling the cabin. "He's walking," the cowboy said. "No," she whispered. "He's searching." "For what?" "For a way in." Her words landed like a stone. The dragging stopped beneath the window again. Then fingers, bare scraping, rose into view, clutching the windowsill from outside. The cowboy leveled his gun at the glass. "Don't," she said quickly. "He's trying to climb in," he snapped. "No," she said. "He's trying to make you shoot." The fingers twitched, scratched, slid higher. The silhouette leaned in, breath fogging the outside of the window. The cowboy clenched his jaw. "Why would he want a bullet?" "Because you fear him," she said, "and fear feeds the wrong man." He swallowed hard, sweat glistened at his temple. Then the fingers suddenly fell away, vanishing into the dark. "Where'd he go?" he whispered. She moved to the wounded man and pressed 2 fingers to his throat. "His pulse fades." "We can't move him," the cowboy muttered. "Not with that thing outside." She looked at him sharply. "Thing?" He exhaled. "Whatever that was wasn't walking right." The stranger choked, struggling to speak. "He's not alone." The cowboy crouched. "Who's with him?" The man's eyes fluttered. "The man you wronged. He sent others before him." "Others?" the cowboy asked. The man's breathing hitched. "Hunters. Trackers. Men who owe him." The cowboy felt the blood drain from his face. "He hired them." The stranger nodded faintly. "And they don't stop." The Apache beauty's eyes sharpened. "So the man outside is not the one you fear most?" "No," the cowboy said. "He's only the first." A sudden metallic clatter erupted outside, the sound of a saddle hitting the dirt. The cowboy's breath hitched. "My horses!" She stepped toward the door, but he caught her arm. "Don't," he said. "I wasn't stepping out," she replied. "I was listening." Another sound followed, slow footsteps moving toward the front of the cabin, not dragging, walking, different pace, different weight, different man. "That's another one," she whispered. The cowboy's skin prickled. "How many?" She looked toward the window, her gaze cold and steady. "How many debts did you leave behind?" The cowboy didn't answer. He gripped his gun tighter, the barrel trembling. Then a sharp, deliberate knock struck the door, not like the dragging man, not like the stranger's fall. This knock was steady, confident, purposeful, and a man's voice followed. "Open up," he said calmly. "We need to talk." The cowboy's breath froze. He knew that voice. The cowboy froze where he stood, breath held tight in his chest. The voice outside was calm, too calm for a night like this. The Apache beauty stepped closer, watching the door with a quiet focus that felt sharper than steel. "You know that voice," she said softly. He swallowed. "I hoped I'd never hear it again." The wounded stranger on the floor tried to lift his head. "Told you, he's coming." The cowboy knelt beside him. "Save your strength." The man shook weakly. "Won't matter if you open that door." Another knock came. Slow, patient. "Come on now," the voice called. "A man shouldn't leave old business unfinished." The cowboy's jaw clenched. He stood and stepped toward the door. She moved in front of him. "No," she said. "I have to face him," he answered. "Not like this." He looked away. "He won't leave." "He will wait," she said. "But if you open that door, you give him ground." He stared at her. "What do you know of him?" "I know the way men speak when they hide knives in words." The cowboy's breath hitched. He always spoke like that. A shadow passed the window. The silhouette paused, head tilted, listening inside. Then the man outside laughed, a low, controlled sound. "You still run from me?" the voice asked. "After all this time?" The cowboy raised his gun. The Apache beauty touched his wrist gently. "Aim later. Listen now." He lowered the barrel slightly, his eyes burning. The voice outside shifted tone, smooth, almost friendly. "You've got someone in there with you, don't you? I can hear breathing." Her eyes narrowed. "He listens too well." "He always did," the cowboy muttered. She glanced at him. "Tell me what he wants." The cowboy hesitated, then whispered, "Payment." "For what debt?" "For a life I didn't take," he said, "but he believes I did." Her gaze hardened. "Belief kills as fast as truth." A fist struck the door, once, firmly. "You owe me," the man barked, "and you know exactly how much." The cowboy flinched. She saw it. "What did you leave behind?" she asked. "A dead brother," he whispered. "But not by my hand." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Truth matters little to a grieving man." He nodded, pain etched across his face. "He swore he'd find me. And now he has." Another voice joined from the darkness, rougher, deeper. "Break it down," the second man growled. The cowboy's heart lurched. "There's two of them." "No," she murmured. "There are more." Footsteps circled the cabin, heavy, uneven, crunching frozen dirt. The horses outside thrashed in their ropes. The wounded stranger trembled. "3, maybe 4. The cowboy stepped back from the door, holster tight in his grip. "They'll break through." "No," she said. "They think you'll come out." He shook his head. "I'm not trapping you in here." "You didn't trap me," she said. "You walked into my ground." He stared at her. "Why help me?" She met his eyes steadily. "Because you came with fear, not cruelty. And because a hunted man stands straighter beside truth." Outside, the first man called out again, "You owe me blood." The cowboy closed his eyes. "I'm not giving him that." "Then give him something else," she said. He frowned. "Like what?" "Time." He blinked. "Time." She stepped toward the back of the cabin and lifted a small wooden panel in the floor. The cowboy stared. "A crawl space," he whispered. "No," she said. "A path." She pulled the panel fully open. Below, a narrow, dark passage led deep under the cabin, timbers reinforced with stone. He looked at her in disbelief. "You planned for this?" "I planned for men who hunt at night," she said, "long before you came." The stranger coughed. "Take me, too." The cowboy knelt beside him. "Can he make it?" She touched the man's forehead. "Only if you carry him." A heavy slam struck the doorframe. Wood cracked. Dust fell from the rafters. "They're breaking through," the cowboy said. "Not yet," she replied. "They test, they wait, they push fear." Another hit, harder. He lifted the wounded man, gripping him under the arms. "He's heavier than he looks." "Pain drags weight," she said. "Move." He guided the stranger toward the opening. The man groaned but clung to consciousness. The cowboy glanced up as a new sound echoed outside, metal scraping. "They've got tools," he said. "They planned this," she murmured. He helped lower the wounded man into the crawl space. Then he looked at her. "You're coming too?" She shook her head. "Not yet." He grabbed her arm. "I'm not leaving you." "You won't," she said. "But someone must hold their eyes." He paled. "You can't fight them alone." "I don't fight alone," she said. "I fight with ground, with shadows, with truth." He stared at her, breath shaking. "How you step into that hole," she said softly, "and you live." Another violent strike shattered part of the doorframe. A hand, large, rough, forced its way inside, grasping for the lock. Her eyes hardened. "Go." The cowboy hesitated, but the stranger below cried out, "He's coming." He looked at her one last time, then he dropped into the darkness. She slammed the panel shut just as the front door burst open. Darkness swallowed the cowboy the moment the wooden panel slammed shut above him. The air beneath the cabin felt cold and earthen, thick with the scent of soil untouched by fire or moonlight. He crouched low, adjusting the wounded stranger's weight across his shoulder. The man groaned faintly. "You hold on," the cowboy whispered. "Don't quit on me." The stranger coughed weakly. "Don't leave her." "I ain't leaving her," he muttered. "Not ever." Above them, the cabin floorboards vibrated as heavy boots struck the wood. Voices echoed, rough, angry, hungry for a man they believed owed them blood. "Push the damn door," one shouted. "Break the frame," another barked. The cowboy clenched his jaw, forcing himself to move deeper through the crawlway. The tunnel was narrow, reinforced with old beams. He brushed one with his palm. It felt smooth, worn by years of hands slipping past it. "She built this for a reason," he muttered. The stranger's breathing hitched. "She's stronger than she looks." "She is," the cowboy agreed, voice low. "But those men ain't small." Above them, a violent crash shook loose dirt from the ceiling. A burst of shouting erupted. "She's inside," a voice howled. "Grab her." The cowboy froze, then another voice cut through. Hers. "No one grabs me." Her tone was calm, cold, final, followed by the sharp crack of something striking flesh. The cowboy's breath caught. "She's fighting." The stranger tightened his fingers weakly around the cowboy's sleeve. "She knows. This land." The cowboy pushed forward again, dragging his boots carefully over stones and packed earth. The tunnel curved sharply, leading beneath the cabin's back wall. A faint draft brushed his cheek. "There," he whispered. "An opening." The stranger trembled. "Light, I see light." As the cowboy crawled closer, he spotted the narrow slit ahead, moonlight slipping through fallen boards and roots. He gently lowered the wounded man near the gap. "You stay still," he said. "Let me check ahead." The man grabbed his wrist weakly. "She's buying time." He nodded once. "And we're not wasting it." He pressed his ear to the gap. Outside, the night stretched quiet for a beat. Too quiet. And then the chaos above returned. Boots pounded. A chair shattered. Men snarled orders. "Find her. She's inside here somewhere." "Light the lamp." The cowboy's pulse hammered. Then a new sound. Her voice again, firm, steady. "You want the man you hunt," she said, "but he's not here." A heavy thud followed, one of the men slamming into something. "Where is he?" a voice roared. She answered without fear. "Farther than your anger can reach." The cowboy exhaled through clenched teeth. "She's stalling them." "She's protecting you," the wounded man rasped. The cowboy lifted his gun. "Then I'm going back." "No," the stranger wheezed. She said, "Wait." Another crash erupted above, followed by the scrape of boots dragged across wood. "She can't hold them forever," he whispered. "You rush in," the man whispered. "You die, and she dies too." The cowboy's jaw trembled. His fingers tightened around the gun. Then something shifted, an echo he recognized too well. The calm voice from before, the man who'd sworn revenge. "You always run," the voice said, "and she hides you well, but every hiding place breaks." The cowboy's anger rose like heat off desert stone. "She's not part of this," he growled under his breath, but the voice upstairs continued. "You think you're worth protecting?" "She doesn't know what you did," the cowboy whispered back to the stranger. "I didn't do it." The stranger nodded weakly. "He doesn't care." A chair toppled, a bottle shattered. "I'll burn this place down," the hunter roared. The cowboy's eyes widened. No. He crawled back to the opening and pushed his head close to the slotted light. Above, she spoke sharply. You light fire here. You burn yourselves with me. A pause. Then the calm voice answered, cold as winter iron. Then we will burn. The cowboy's breath hitched. He spun back toward the tunnel. We're getting out, he said. Now. He grabbed the wounded man and pulled him toward the exit. The man groaned. Move, the cowboy whispered. You can make it. He shoved loose boards aside, letting moonlight pour through. The night air hit him like a warning. He helped the stranger crawl through, then slipped out behind him. Outside, the horses stamped nervously, ears flat, eyes wild. The cowboy crouched low behind a fallen tree trunk. Stay down, he told the wounded man. A faint orange glow flickered through the cabin window. They lit a lamp, he muttered. They're thinking about fire. Save her, the stranger gasped. You can't leave her. The cowboy raised his gun, eyes fixed on the door. Then the cabin shook, hard, followed by a man's scream. One of the hunters had fallen, and her voice cut through the night again. You came for the wrong man. With a cold heaviness settling in his gut, the cowboy rose slowly to his feet. Her fight wasn't over, but the next move would be his. The cowboy stepped from behind the fallen tree, gun raised, breath unsteady in the cold night air. The wounded man behind him tried to speak, but only a strained whisper escaped. Don't rush. Not yet. I don't have time, the cowboy muttered. The cabin glowed from within, shifting shadows, darting movements, silhouettes of men stumbling. Something inside had changed their confidence. Something had shaken them. He edged closer, keeping low, eyes fixed on the doorway. The horses tugged at their reins, hooves skittering across the dirt. Then a violent crash exploded inside, followed by a man screaming, She cut me! The cowboy's pulse surged. She's armed, he whispered. Of course she is, the stranger breathed. She warned you. The cowboy crouched near the cabin wall, flattening himself against the cold logs. He listened. Inside, the hunters shouted directions, chaotic, scared, furious. Block the back. She ran to the corner. Light another lamp. Then the calm voice rose again. Don't chase shadows. She's leading you. A short silence followed, then a heavy thud as someone fell. The cowboy felt a chill spread through him. Her movements were sharp, calculated. She fought with the land, with angles, with silence, but she was one person against several men. Stay alive, he whispered. He crept toward the backside of the cabin, peering through a gap in the logs. Inside, he caught a flash of movement. Hers. She slipped between two toppled chairs, silent as dusk wind, sliding behind a support beam. The hunters didn't see her, but he did. A man lunged toward her hiding place, lantern swinging wildly. She pivoted, snagging the edge of a fallen broom handle, snapping it against the beam in one motion, striking the man's wrist. The lantern dropped and shattered. Flame licked across the floorboards. The first hunter screamed, Fire! Fire! She stepped back from the spreading flame, breathing steady, eyes sharp. The calm voice growled, Put it out! Now, two men ducked low, beating at the flames with coats. But as they did, she slipped behind the largest man and shoved a wooden table into him, knocking him sideways into another. They crashed together, swearing. The cowboy whispered, She's holding them off. Not forever, the wounded man said weakly. Help her, soon. A sudden stomp echoed above. The cabin roof creaked. Someone climbed up. The cowboy's eyes widened. They're going to block exits. He circled around the cabin, looking for an entry point. The windows were small, too small to climb through quickly. The door was guarded by a man pacing. She's outnumbered, he muttered. I need a way in. Then he spotted something. A narrow window on the side, its shutters cracked open. The hunters must have overlooked it in the chaos. He moved toward it quietly. Inside, she ducked as a bottle shattered against the wall next to her. You can't hide forever, a hunter yelled. I'm not hiding, she said. Her voice cut through the smoke. I'm watching. The cowboy clenched his teeth. She's keeping them focused on her. That's her way, the stranger whispered. She bends danger. He slid to the window, testing the shutter. It shifted slightly, not locked. He pulled it open just enough to slip his arm through. The smoke stung his eyes. He aimed his gun at the floor just inside the window's edge. "Move away from the center," he whispered into the gap. She didn't look his way, but she turned. She heard him. 2 hunters rushed toward her. "Now!" one shouted. She dropped low, rolling behind a fallen bench, their boots skidding where she'd stood seconds before. The cowboy fired once, just above their heads. The shot cracked like thunder. The hunters flinched hard, stumbling back. "She's got help!" one yelled. The calm voice growled, "He's here." The cowboy slid the shutter wider. One hunter lunged toward the window, knife raised. The cowboy fired again. The man spun and collapsed. Smoke thickened. Fire crawled along the broken table legs. "Too much fire," the cowboy muttered. "She'll choke in there." She ducked behind the central beam again, covering her mouth with her sleeve. The calm voice shouted, "Seal the back! He's trying to get in." Boots hammered toward the window. She looked toward the cowboy finally, eyes sharp, firelit, calm. "Don't climb in," she whispered. "They'll corner you." He hissed back, "I'm not leaving you." "You're not," she said softly, "but choose right." He blinked. "Right." She pointed, quick, precise, toward the far corner of the room where the floorboards weren't level. A trap, a weak spot, a plan. He understood. A hunter grabbed her shoulder, but she twisted, driving her elbow into his ribs. He shouted, stumbling back. She kept her eyes locked on the cowboy. "Break the outside post," she said. "The corner beam, the one near the table." "They'll fall," he whispered. "Exactly." Heavy smoke filled the cabin. The hunters coughed violently. "Hurry," she said. He sprinted to the back corner outside, boots kicking up dirt. Smoke seeped through the cracks. He found the support post, one that held the weak corner. He raised the butt of his gun. Inside, hunters advanced on her again. "Do it," she whispered. He slammed the post, once, twice. The wood splintered. Then, a loud crack tore through the cabin. The floor collapsed under the hunter's feet. She leapt aside as 2 men dropped through the broken boards, screaming into the crawl space below. The cowboy stared. She had known exactly where to stand, but the calm voice roared from the doorway. "You think that saves you? I'm not done." The cowboy's stomach twisted. The real fight was just beginning. The cowboy backed away from the shattered post, chest heaving as dust billowed from the collapsed section of the cabin floor. The 2 fallen hunters groaned from the crawl space below, one cursing through clenched teeth, the other too winded to speak. Smoke leaked out through the broken corner, twisting upward like a warning. But the calm voice at the doorway cut through everything. "You think tricks will save you?" The cowboy tightened his grip on the gun. He's still standing. Inside, she moved through the smoke, emerging from the haze like a shadow pulled into shape by the fire's glow. Her hair clung to her face, her shoulders rising with slow, controlled breaths. "You hold anger like a blade," she called toward the doorway. "But blades cut both hands." The calm voice answered with a slow chuckle. "You're brave. But you bleed like everyone." She stepped behind the support beam as a boot slammed into the half-broken doorframe. The hunter strode in, the strongest of the group, wide-shouldered, coat covered in trail dust. His eyes burned like coals, fixed on her. "You hid him," he said. "I sheltered a traveler," she answered. "You sheltered a coward." She did not flinch. "You hunt shadows." The hunter raised his pistol. "Shadows die too." The cowboy felt his heartbeat pounding in his throat. "I need to draw him out," he whispered. The wounded man behind him rasped. "Don't risk her." "I'm not," the cowboy muttered. "I'm risking me." He moved toward the window again, keeping low. Inside, the hunter advanced slowly, gun steady, boots crunching over broken boards. "You know he killed my brother," the hunter growled. "No," she said. "He did not." "You speak for him," he snapped. "I speak for truth." The hunter's finger twitched on the trigger. "You weren't there," he snarled. Her voice stayed calm. "Your anger blinds you." "Blinds me," he shouted. "I saw his tracks. I saw the prints. I saw—" "You saw what you wanted," she said softly. The hunter hesitated. Just enough. The cowboy seized the moment. "Hey!" he shouted from outside. The hunter spun toward the window instantly, gun up, eyes wild. "You!" he roared. The cowboy stood in clear moonlight, a few yards from the cabin wall. "Looking for me?" "Step closer," the hunter growled. "Drop the gun," the cowboy replied. Laughter burst from the hunter's throat. "You left my brother in the dirt, and now you ask for mercy." The cowboy's jaw tightened. "I didn't kill him." "Liar!" the hunter fired, splintering the window frame inches from the cowboy's head. Inside, she moved, not a step wasted. She struck the hunter's wrist with the broken broom handle. The shot jerked upward, smashing a lantern on the beam. Fire spilled instantly. The hunter roared, swinging at her. She dodged, slipping behind the beam again. The cowboy fired back through the broken window, aiming at the floor near the hunter's boots. Wood split. Sparks spit upward. The hunter stumbled. The wounded man behind the cowboy gasped. "Don't hit her." "I won't," the cowboy said. "But he needs to step back." Smoke thickened. Fire crawled up the fallen furniture. "He'll burn the cabin down," she warned. "He doesn't care," the cowboy replied. Inside, the hunter swung again. She ducked, sweeping his legs with the broom handle. He crashed to one knee, his pistol skittered across the floor. She grabbed it, then hesitated. The cowboy saw her pause. "He wants you to shoot," the cowboy shouted. "Don't give him that." The hunter lunged, grabbing her arm. She elbowed him in the jaw, breaking free. He staggered back, spitting blood. "You think you're stronger than me?" he growled. "No," she said. "Just smarter." The cowboy moved toward the window, ready to climb in. But a sudden sound froze him. A horse screamed. Not fear, pain. "Damn," the cowboy whispered. "Someone's hurting the horses." The wounded man shuddered. "There's another one, and outside." The cowboy spun. Another figure moved near the horses, smaller, faster, holding something long and glinting. "Second hunter," he muttered, "the one who stayed outside." He aimed his gun. Inside the cabin, the first hunter charged her again, slamming her against the wall. The impact shook dust from the rafters. She gasped, ribs bending under the pressure. The cowboy started toward her, but the second hunter near the horses raised a burning torch. "No," the cowboy whispered. "He's lighting." The second hunter swung the torch toward the haystack. Fire. The hay exploded into flames. The horses shrieked, pulling at their reins. Inside, fire spread faster. Smoke rolled across the ceiling. The first hunter grabbed her hair, slammed her against the wall again. The cowboy's chest filled with panic. "I need to get inside." "Not the window," the wounded man gasped. "Roof, the roof." The cowboy looked up at the cabin's pitched rafters, climbed the cabin, dropped from above, cut through the smoke, surprised the hunter. He nodded once. "That's the move." He sprinted toward the cabin wall. Behind him, the second hunter turned with the torch. "You're next!" the man yelled. The cowboy didn't slow. He grabbed a low beam, hoisted himself upward. Inside the cabin, she gasped as the first hunter pressed harder. The cowboy reached the cabin's roof edge. Below him, the hunter's torch hit the doorframe. Fire leapt upward. The cowboy's pulse thundered. He swung onto the roof. Smoke poured through the cracks. Inside, she whispered, "Hurry." The cowboy crawled toward the roof's weak spot. But then, a bullet tore through the roof inches from his hand. The calm voice rose from below. "I see you up there." The cowboy froze. The hunter had stepped outside, gun leveled, pointed straight at the roofline. The cowboy stopped cold on the roof, gravel biting into his palms. Smoke curled through the shingles and stinging his eyes. Below, the hunter stood with his pistol raised, his coat whipping in the fire-lit wind. His aim was steady, too steady. "I've waited long enough," the hunter called. The cowboy crouched low. "Put the gun down." "You don't get to ask anything," the hunter growled. Inside the burning cabin, she coughed once, sharp and strained. The hunter's attention flicked toward the sound, just enough for the cowboy to shift a few inches across the roofline. "Don't move," the hunter snapped. "I hear you." The cowboy froze again. Inside, the fire climbed higher, licking the rafters. The cabin groaned under the heat. She dragged herself behind a fallen chair, shielding her face from the smoke. "You're burning her alive," the cowboy shouted. The hunter shrugged. "Collateral. You don't need her dead." "I need you dead," the hunter replied. "She's just in the way." The cowboy's grip tightened on the roof's edge. "You kill her. You kill your chance at truth." "There's only one truth," the hunter said. "My brother is gone because of you." The cowboy's voice cracked. "I didn't kill him." The hunter barked a bitter laugh. "You ran. Only guilty men run." Inside the cabin, a beam collapsed, showering sparks. She shielded her head, then forced herself to crawl toward the back wall, keeping low. The cowboy's heart pounded. "Let her out. She has nothing to do with this." "She hid you," the hunter snarled. "That's enough." Then another voice called weakly from the shadows behind the horses. Stop this!" The cowboy recognized it instantly. The wounded stranger. He pushed himself up on his elbows. "Your brother didn't die by him." The hunter's shoulders tensed. "Shut up." The stranger coughed, blood staining his lip. "You don't know, June, what happened." "I said shut up," the hunter repeated. "He tried to save him." The stranger gasped. The cowboy swallowed, eyes burning. "He tried everything." The hunter's gun wavered. "Liar," he whispered. The stranger shook his head. "Your brother fell by accident." "Liar!" the hunter roared, aiming at the wounded man. The cowboy moved, fast. He rolled across the roof, sending dust and embers scattering. The hunter whipped his gun toward him. "Don't!" the cowboy shouted. The hunter fired. The bullet ripped through the shingles, grazing the cowboy's forearm. He grunted, rolling behind the chimney. Smoke burst upward from the fresh hole. Inside the cabin, she coughed again, louder, weaker. Flames closed in, crawling up the corners of the room. She pressed her hand against the back wall, searching for any cool spot. A way out. The cowboy steadied his breath. He needed an angle. He needed an opening, and the fire gave him one. Heat surged beneath the roof, warping the boards around the hunter. A loud crack echoed as the timber below shifted. The hunter staggered. "What?" The cowboy seized the moment. He lunged from behind the chimney, grabbing the exposed beam and swinging down hard. The shingle edge slammed into the hunter's wrist. The gun jerked sideways. A shot tore into the dirt. The cowboy dropped from the roof, landing hard on his shoulder. Pain shot through him, but he rolled to his feet. The hunter charged, fury twisting his face. "You should have stayed dead," he roared. The cowboy raised his fists. "You first." They collided, fists, elbows, shoulders. Two men locked in dust and firelight. The hunter swung wide, catching the cowboy's jaw. The cowboy staggered but didn't fall. He drove his knee upward, striking the hunter's ribs. The man grunted, but rage held him upright. "You can't outrun guilt," the hunter spit. "I'm not running," the cowboy said. "I'm standing." Inside the cabin, another beam crashed. She pressed her palm against the wall again, and this time it gave. A thin crack of cold air seeped through. She whispered, "There." Outside, the fight raged. The hunter grabbed the cowboy's coat, dragging him close. "You watched my brother die." "I held him," the cowboy gasped. "I held him until he stopped breathing." The hunter froze, rage flickering. For the first time, he hesitated. "You held him?" "Yes," the cowboy rasped. "He asked for you." "I said you were coming." The hunter's eyes shook, just for a second, but grief twists fast. He raised his pistol again, pressing it to the cowboy's forehead. "Liar," he whispered. Inside the cabin, she slammed her shoulder against the weakened wall. Once, twice, 3 times. Crack. A board snapped free. Cold night air blasted through the hole. She coughed, then whispered, "I'm through." Outside, the cowboy stared down the barrel. The hunter's finger tightened. The wounded stranger shouted, "Look behind you!" The hunter spun. Too late. She stepped from the broken wall, smoke rising behind her, eyes steady, holding a charred beam like a spear. The cowboy's breath stopped. She hurled it. The beam spun through the firelight and struck the hunter square in the shoulder. He dropped the gun. The cowboy lunged. The hunter stumbled, but didn't fall. He turned toward her with murder in his eyes and reached for the knife at his belt. The hunter's hand shot toward the knife at his belt, fingers brushing the worn handle. Smoke swirled around him, firelight flashing across his face. Rage, grief, and something darker tangled beneath. The cowboy moved first. "Don't touch that knife," the cowboy warned. The hunter sneered. "Try and stop me." She stepped between them before the cowboy could react, her body low, balanced, hands open like she weighed wind and danger the same way. "Enough," she said. The hunter laughed, choking on smoke. "You think you can stop me?" "I don't think," she said. "I know." He lunged. She sidestepped, quick, sharp, controlled, and slammed her elbow into his forearm. The knife clattered to the dirt. The hunter roared and swung with his other hand. She ducked under it, sweeping his legs with her foot. He crashed onto his back. The cowboy rushed forward, but she raised a hand. "No," she said. "Let him stand." The hunter snarled, pushing himself upright, fury twisting every line on his face. "You people," he spat, "always meddling." "You brought this fight," she answered. The cowboy moved closer. "This ends now." The hunter glared at him, breath ragged. "Not until I take what I'm owed." "You're owed truth," the cowboy said. "I'm owed blood." "You think his blood will bring peace?" she asked. "It brings justice." "No," she said softly. "Justice needs sight. You are blind." The hunter lunged again, fists wild. The cowboy blocked the first strike, but the second caught his ribs. He grunted, stumbling back. The hunter pressed in, landing another heavy blow. "You ran from him," the hunter roared. The cowboy spat dust. "I stayed until his last breath." "Liar!" The hunter swung again. This time, she stepped in. Her hand caught his wrist mid-swing. Her other hand struck his throat, quick, controlled, enough to choke the next word from him. The hunter collapsed to his knees, gasping. She crouched close, voice low. "Listen. For once." The cowboy steadied himself, breathing hard. Smoke drifted around them, ash falling like slow snow. The wounded stranger called out weakly from behind the fallen tree, "Let him here!" The hunter's eyes flicked toward him. "You!" the hunter rasped. "You weren't there." "I was," the stranger whispered. "I was there." The hunter's face twisted. "You're lying too." The stranger shook his head painfully, coughing blood. "Your brother slipped. Riverbank. Gave way." The hunter froze. "You're lying," he whispered. But the words faltered. The stranger spoke again, voice fading. "He reached for help." Cowboy grabbed him, held on, no ground underfoot. She added quietly, "He tried to pull your brother back." "He did," the stranger said. "But the bank broke again. Both fell. One hit a rock." The hunter's eyes filled with something deeper than rage, fear. "You're lying," he whispered again. "He carried your brother's body to the ridge," the stranger said. "Sat with him until dawn." The cowboy looked away, jaw tight. "She knows truth," the stranger rasped. "You don't—" The hunter stared at the cowboy as if seeing him for the first time, pain cracking through the hate. "You stayed with him?" the hunter whispered. "I did," the cowboy said quietly. "I wasn't leaving a dying man alone." Silence pressed into the night. Only fire crackled. Only the horses breathed. The hunter's shoulders shook. Grief, not fury. But old wounds break strange. His trembling hand drifted toward the fallen knife. She moved instantly. Her boot pressed onto the blade. "No," she said. The hunter's voice cracked. "I lost my brother." "And he lost a friend," she answered. "I don't believe you," the hunter said softly. The cowboy didn't move. "Believe what you need." The hunter stared at the dirt. "I need someone to blame." "That won't bring him back," she whispered. The hunter's jaw clenched hard. "But it keeps the hurt alive." She stepped closer, her face steady but sad. "Let it die." The hunter's eyes lifted, wet, fractured. "I can't," he said. The cowboy shook his head. "Then you will die holding it." The hunter's breath trembled. His hand snapped upward, toward her ankle, toward the knife pinned beneath her boot. She shifted too slow. The hunter's fingers brushed the blade, and then a new sound tore the night open. Hooves, fast, hard, storming from the tree line. The cowboy spun toward the dark. A lone rider burst from the shadows, coat whipping, rifle in hand. Another hunter, The rider screamed, "Get down!" A shot cracked the night. She pushed the cowboy aside. The bullet tore through the air and struck the ground inches from her feet. The new hunter reloaded. "You said you had him," the rider shouted. The cowboy felt dread drop through him. More hunters, a second wave. The first hunter scrambled to his feet, hope flaring in his eyes. The rider yelled again, "No survivors, finish it!" The cowboy raised his gun. She stepped forward. The fire roared behind them. The hunter reached for his fallen knife. The rider cocked his rifle. The horses bolted in panic, and the night blew open with danger again. The rider's horse skidded to a halt, hooves tearing deep ruts in the dirt. Smoke from the burning cabin pushed across the clearing, glowing orange against the rider's coat. The cowboy felt the air tighten. Too much danger, too little ground. The first hunter staggered upright, clutching his bruised shoulder. "You came," he gasped. The rider spit dust. "I came to finish what you couldn't." The cowboy lifted his gun, breath steady but tight. She stepped beside him, shoulders squared, eyes locked on the rider. The wounded stranger behind the fallen tree tried to sit up, failing after a few inches. "Keep low," the cowboy warned him. The stranger coughed. "They'll kill all of you." The rider cocked the rifle. "Only those who stand in the way." She stepped forward, not reckless, but rooted. "You bring fire to a land that never wronged you." "This land took my friend," the rider snapped. "No," she said. "Your anger did." The cowboy scanned the tree line. "Any more coming?" The rider smirked. "Two more behind me." The cowboy's heart pounded. "Two more. Maybe three," the hunter rasped. Smoke rose thicker behind them, fire creeping along the cabin roof. Sparks leapt like frantic fireflies into the night. "We need ground," she murmured. "We don't have any," the cowboy replied. She didn't answer. She simply dropped to one knee and pressed her palm to the earth, listening, feeling. The cowboy watched her eyes shift. "There," she said quietly, "behind the stump." "What's there?" the cowboy asked. "Cover," she whispered. "And chance." The rider raised the rifle again. "Talk all you want, I'll shoot through both of you." She stood slowly, fingers brushing his arm. "Move when I move." The cowboy nodded. "All right," the rider shouted. "Stay where you are." She didn't listen. She hurled a handful of dirt straight into the rider's eyes. The horse reared. The rider cursed, fumbling the rifle. "Now!" she yelled. The cowboy sprinted toward the stump. She ran beside him, her stride steady despite the smoke and heat. A shot cracked behind them. Dirt exploded at their heels. "Keep moving!" the cowboy shouted. The first hunter lunged, grabbing her wrist. She twisted, driving her knee into his thigh. He staggered, grabbing at her hair. She spun again, yanking his arm into a lock he couldn't break. "Let go," she warned. He didn't. She jerked his arm sharply. The hunter screamed, collapsing to one knee. The cowboy fired once into the dirt beside him. "Stay down," the cowboy growled. The hunter froze. Another shot rang out from the rider, closer this time. Bark blasted off a tree inches from the cowboy's head. "That was too close," he muttered. "Next one finds us," she replied. The rider wiped his eyes, raising the rifle again. "I see you now." The cowboy grabbed her shoulder. "We need higher ground." "No," she said. "We need shadows." The cabin behind them crackled and roared, collapsing inward. Fire stretched across the roof, then crashed into the main beam with a thunderous crack. The rider laughed. "No hiding in there now." Smoke rolled across the clearing, thick and dark. The cowboy looked at her. "That enough shadow?" he asked. She nodded. "More than enough." She pulled him toward the thickest cloud of smoke. The rider fired wildly. "I'll hit something," he shouted. "You hit nothing," she said quietly. Inside the smoke, she guided the cowboy with soft touches, elbow, wrist, shoulder, never losing direction. She moved like someone who had lived her whole life, reading wind and earth. The cowboy whispered, "Where are we going?" "To the fallen cedar," she murmured, "behind the ridge. That gives us nothing." "It gives us surprise," she said. "Hand surprises ground." Before he could reply, the rider entered the smoke, coughing violently. "Come out," he shouted. "Coward!" She pulled the cowboy lower. Her lips brushed his ear. "Below the fog," she whispered. The cowboy dropped onto his elbows, crawling low. The rider stumbled in the wrong direction. The smoke favored those who knew its ways. "Where are you?" the rider choked. She moved fast, reaching the fallen cedar. "Here," she whispered. They ducked behind the trunk. The cowboy exhaled. That bought seconds. She didn't look at him. "Then use them." The rider burst from the smoke, rifle leveled. "I see you." The cowboy lifted his gun, but she caught his wrist. "Wait," she said. "Why?" he hissed. "Listen." A faint sound carried through the trees. Hoofbeats, but not the rider's horse. Another, then more. The cowboy's eyes widened. "The others?" She nodded once. "They found the trail." The rider grinned through soot-streaked teeth. "Told you I weren't alone." She breathed in slowly, jaw set. "He brings an army." The cowboy tightened his grip. "How many?" The rider laughed. "Enough to bury you." The cowboy ducked lower behind the cedar. "This just turned worse." "No," she said softly. "It turned honest." He looked at her. "Honest?" She pointed toward the burning cabin. "They chase a lie." "You stand with truth." He shook his head. "Truth won't stop bullets." "No," she said, "but choices will." Then the forest erupted. Shouts, hooves, metal, boots. Shapes moved through the smoke. The second wave had arrived. Another furious voice shouted, "Find them! No mercy!" The cowboy pulled her close behind the fallen cedar. The night around them filled with hunters. And the next danger stepped into view. A man with a torch, a rifle slung across his back and a chain in his hand. The man with the torch stepped into the clearing like a verdict handed down by night itself. Smoke curled around him. The chain in his fist dragged across the ground, links clinking like distant thunder rolling toward a storm. The cowboy stiffened beside her. "That's bad," he murmured. "Yes," she whispered. "Very bad." Behind the chain carrier, riders circled through the trees, shadows on horseback, rifles glinting, faces hard with the same fury that had driven the first hunter. The fire from the cabin pushed a red glow across their coats. Sparks drifted like angry fireflies between the horse's legs. The wounded stranger lifted his head weakly. "That one, the chain. He's worse," the cowboy hissed. "Worse how?" The stranger coughed. "He collects debts and with iron." The chainman raised his voice, deep and gravel-thick. "Show yourselves. You can't hide from justice." She answered before the cowboy could speak. "You carry no justice." "I carry truth," the chainman replied. She stepped from behind the cedar trunk, not fully exposed but visible enough to draw every hunter's eyes. The cowboy grabbed her arm. "Don't." "I must," she whispered. He shook his head. "They'll shoot." "They won't," she said softly. "They want him alive." The cowboy froze. She had just spoken something he hadn't admitted, not even to her. The chainman swung the chain once, a wide arc humming through the air. "Send me the runaway," he called. "And the rest walk free." Her reply cut like flint. "No one here runs." Murmurs rippled through the riders. A few horses stamped. One hunter spat on the ground. The cowboy whispered, "They won't believe you." "They don't need belief," she said. "They need doubt." The chainman pointed straight at the cowboy. "You hid behind that woman's skirt while good men died." The cowboy stepped forward, barely an inch, but enough. "Your fight is with me." "Not anymore," the chainman answered. "Now it's with anyone who shields you." The cowboy clenched his teeth. "She shields no one. She shields truth," the wounded stranger rasped. "That's enough." The chainman snapped the chain again, louder, sharper. Every rider shifted at once. "She said no deal," the cowboy said. "Leave her out." "I don't leave anything out," the chainman growled. He flicked his wrist. The chain lashed the dirt inches from her feet. The cowboy surged forward, fury ripping through him. "Touch her and I'll bury you." A low rumble rolled across the ridge. Thunderless, but deep. The riders paused. She turned her ear slightly. "Earth warns," she whispered. The cowboy frowned. "Warnings of what?" "Movement," she said. "Weight shifting. Ground trembling." The chainman sneered. "Words from fear." "Words from listening," she replied. The cowboy felt it too then, the faint vibration under his boots. Not horses, Not fire. Something else. The chain man swung the chain upward again. "Enough talk!" a rider yelled. "Do it!" Another shouted, "Take them both!" She stepped in front of the cowboy. "No." The chain man froze. Something in her voice, quiet, steady, unafraid, stopped even the riders. "You swing that iron," she said softly, "and the land takes you first." The cowboy felt a chill run down his spine. It wasn't a threat. It was a truth. "What land?" the chain man mocked. "This burning trash." She pointed to the ridge. "Not that land. This one." The vibration grew stronger. The cowboy suddenly understood. "Wait." It happened fast. A beam from the burning cabin cracked, split, and collapsed inward. The ground shuddered. The fire surged upward, bending the air with heat. The horses panicked at once. Several reared. One rider fell. Another lost his reins. The chainman stumbled, boots skidding. The cowboy grabbed her wrist. "Now!" They moved together, sprinting along the edge of the smoke line. The chainman roared, swinging the chain wildly. "Stop them!" Shots cracked in the dark. One bullet tore through the cedar bark beside them. Another shattered a branch near her shoulder. She didn't break pace. The wounded stranger groaned from his hiding place. "Don't! Leave me!" "We're not!" the cowboy shouted. They slid behind the fallen tree. "We need distance," the cowboy said. "We need misdirection," she corrected. He nodded. "All right, you choose." She pointed toward the ridge, a steep slope covered in loose shale and brush. "That way." "The ridge?" he asked. "They won't follow. Too dangerous." He grabbed her arm gently. "You'll slip." "So will they," she replied. Behind them, the chain man roared again. "They're heading for the ridge. Cut them off." More riders pushed through the trees. The cowboy hoisted the wounded stranger onto his back. "Hold tight." The man mumbled something lost to the wind. She touched the cowboy's shoulder. "Follow my steps." "Only mine." "I trust you," he whispered. She nodded once. Then they climbed, loose stones shifting, firelight chasing them, gunshots cracking against the night. Halfway up the slope, she paused, breathing hard. He nearly bumped into her. "What is it?" he whispered. She didn't answer, her eyes fixed on the ridge above. Something moved there. A shape, upright, still, waiting. The cowboy felt the blood drain from his face. "Is that one of them?" She shook her head slowly. "No," she whispered. "Not one of them." The figure stepped into faint moonlight, and the cowboy's breath caught. Someone else had reached the ridge first. Someone watching, someone silent, someone neither hunter nor ally, a new danger, a new witness, a new piece of the past, standing exactly where they needed to go. The figure stood at the ridge's peak, still as a carved stone, backlit by thin moonlight cutting through the smoke. The cowboy froze mid-step, one hand gripping the wounded stranger, the other steadying himself on a shaking branch. "Who is that?" he whispered. She stepped forward slowly, eyes narrowed. Not hunter, not friend. Below them, the chain man roared. "Cut them off! Don't let them reach the ridge!" Riders scrambled upward, stones sliding beneath their boots. Horses neighed in panic as the slope crumbled under their weight. Dust blew upward in choking clouds. The cowboy clenched his jaw. "We're trapped." "No," she said. "We're measured." The stranger on his back murmured weakly. "Don't go near him." The figure at the ridge finally moved. One step forward, deliberate, grounded. A long coat shifted with the night wind. In his right hand he held something. Not a gun, not a chain, but a long staff carved with patterns the cowboy couldn't read. She inhaled sharply. "He knows this land." "You know him?" the cowboy asked. "No," she whispered. "But the land knows him." The cowboy felt unease crawl under his skin. Behind them, the chain man shouted, "Faster! They're almost up." She raised her hand gently. "Don't rush." "Why not?" he hissed. "Because rushing makes noise," she said. "And noise calls death." The figure at the ridge lifted the carved staff and pointed it straight at the cowboy. The cowboy's breath stopped. "He wants you," she whispered. "I don't know him," the cowboy muttered. "Maybe he knows you." A rock above them broke loose and tumbled past, smashing into shards at their feet. Dust shot upward. The wounded stranger groaned, slipping lower on the cowboy's back. "Hold on," the cowboy whispered. He tightened his grip and stepped closer to her. "What do we do?" "We give him truth," she said. "I've given enough truth tonight." "Not his truth," she replied. "Yours." The figure's voice suddenly rolled down the slope, low, deep, carried by the wind. "You run from men," the stranger called. "But will you run from the land?" The cowboy stiffened. "What does that mean?" she whispered. "He tests you." The cowboy looked down the slope, hunters climbing, fire behind them, guns drawn. Then he looked up the ridge, one silent figure holding ground with a staff marked by old stories. "If I go up," he said, "I walk straight into him. If you go down," she said, "you die." The figure spoke again. "Step forward, wanderer." The cowboy felt his heartbeat thundering through his ribs. "Why me?" he whispered. "Because you carry weight," she said. "Weight calls challenge." The chainman shouted from below, "I can see them! Shoot!" Gunshots cracked against stones. Chips flew. A bullet whined past the cowboy's ear. She grabbed his sleeve, yanking him into a hollow between two rocks. "Stay low!" The stranger on his back whimpered in pain. "We can't stay here," the cowboy said. "We're pinned." "No," she whispered. "We're chosen." The cowboy frowned. "Chosen by who?" She glanced at the ridge. "By him." The figure took another step forward, staff striking the stone with a dull echo. He spoke again, his voice almost a chant. "Show your steps, show your truth." The cowboy's hands trembled. More gunfire erupted. Riders neared. The chainman's voice rose in fury. "Take them alive if you can. Kill the woman first." The cowboy's blood ran cold. She heard it too. Her eyes sharpened. "Give me the wounded man," she said. "What?" the cowboy asked. "Give him now." He lowered the stranger carefully into her arms. She positioned the man behind the hollowed rock. "Stay hidden," she murmured to the stranger. Then she turned to the cowboy. "Go up." He shook his head. "Not without you." "I follow after you conquer fear," she answered. "I don't fear him," the cowboy said. "You fear yourself," she whispered. Her words hit deeper than any bullet. Gunshots fired again, closer, sharper. Hunters were mere yards away. The figure at the ridge slammed the staff against stone. "Step," he commanded. The cowboy's breath shook, caught between dying to hunters or climbing toward a man who seemed carved from the land itself. "Go," she whispered. "The land watches." The cowboy inhaled once, deep, solid, and stepped upward. Another step, and another. The figure never moved aside. The chainman below screamed, "Shoot him!" Gunfire ripped through the air. A bullet struck the ridge seconds after the cowboy reached the top, stone exploding near his boots. He staggered forward, falling to his knees. The carved staff figure towered above him. The staff came down, slamming into the ground inches from the cowboy's hands. The cowboy stared up, sweat and dust mixing on his face. The figure leaned in. "You left truth buried," he said softly. "Now earth demands payment." Wind howled across the ridge. Dust spun into a twisting column. She shouted from below, "Don't move!" The cowboy raised his eyes, but the staff holder reached out, grabbing the cowboy by the collar, and dragged him to his feet. The wind whipped across the ridge as the staff holder pulled the cowboy upright. Dust swirled around them, forming a thin veil between earth and sky. Below, the hunters shouted in confusion, unable to see the summit through the smoke. She climbed toward them, steady and sure, guiding the wounded stranger with one hand while shielding him with her own body. The cowboy swallowed hard, meeting the stranger's gaze. "Why bring me up here?" he asked. The staff holder's reply was quiet, but it shook the air. "You carry guilt that is not yours." "I never asked for any of this," the cowboy muttered. "You don't ask for storms," the figure said, "but you stand in them." The man pointed the staff toward the valley where the hunters gathered. Their torches flickered like angry fireflies. "They chase a lie," the figure continued, "but you let that lie live." The cowboy lowered his head. "I tried to save his brother. I failed." You failed no one, the figure said. The earth took him, not you. The cowboy's breath trembled. He thinks I pushed him. And you let him think so, the figure replied. Because you feared the weight of grief. The cowboy looked away. I didn't know how to tell the truth. The wind shifted. Smoke parted as she reached the top of the ridge, the wounded stranger leaning heavily on her shoulder. She stepped between them. Words can mend, she said, if spoken on the right ground. The hunters below began climbing again, shouting orders. A rider loaded his rifle, another snapped rein and spurred upward. They'll be here soon, the cowboy warned. The staffholder nodded. Then give them truth before they bring death. The cowboy stepped toward the ridge's edge. They won't listen. They listen when a man stands without fear, the figure said. The cowboy felt her hand touch his back, gentle, grounding. You don't stand alone, she whispered. His chest loosened. He lifted his voice, strong and clear. Your brother's death was an accident. The hunters slowed. Torches flickered, heads lifted. He fell because the bank broke, the cowboy shouted. I grabbed him. I held him. I didn't let go. The chain man snarled. Lies. The wounded stranger forced himself upright, gripping a rock. Not lies, he rasped. I saw it all. The valley went silent. He tried to save him, the stranger continued. Risked his own life, to pull him back. Whispers spread among the riders. Several lowered their rifles. One dismounted. Another stepped back. The chainman shook with rage, unable to accept balance without blood. He ran, the chainman screamed. He left us in the dark. No, the wounded stranger whispered. He carried your brother to the ridge so he wouldn't die alone. The chainman's fury cracked. His face twisted. Pain, sorrow, disbelief, all tangled together. He fell to his knees. Torches dimmed in the cold wind. The staffholder lowered the carved staff and stepped forward. The land hears truth, he said. Now you must choose your ending. The cowboy breathed deeply. I choose peace. The riders shifted uncertainly. She placed her hand over the cowboy's, fingers steady. And peace starts with action. The cowboy nodded. He dropped his gun. It hit the stone with a dull thud. The staffholder raised the carved staff high. Let this night end its chase. Silence swept across the ridge. One by one, the hunters lowered their rifles. The chainman covered his face with both hands, shoulders shaking. The riders slowly turned their horses away, retreating down the slope, disappearing into smoke and darkness. The cowboy collapsed to his knees, chest heaving. She knelt beside him, resting her hand over his heart. You carried weight alone, she whispered. Now you don't. The staffholder stepped back into shadow, becoming one with the land that birthed him. Walk the earth with truth, he said, and the earth walks with you. Then he vanished into the night. The cowboy looked at her, truly looked, seeing the fierce fire and quiet mercy woven together. I owe you everything, he said. She shook her head softly. No, you owe truth only. The wind calmed. The fire behind them faded into crackling embers. Together, they descended the ridge, guiding the wounded stranger toward a dawn that finally felt earned. A new day rose, not with fear, but with truth, and with the promise of more than one night could ever give. If this story gripped you, don't let it end here. The West is full of hidden truths, fierce loyalties, and unforgettable nights like this one, where courage decides survival and unexpected bonds rewrite destiny. If you want more tales of frontier justice, forbidden connections, and heroes tested by land and fire, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video. Your support keeps these powerful stories alive and helps bring even more incredible adventures to the screen. And tell me in the comments, which moment hit you hardest? The truth on the ridge, the fight in the flames, or the final choice for peace? Your voice shapes the next chapter,